If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
Well, there we are. Good morning. Sorry for the late notice, folks. Didn't really realize or know that I was going to be streaming till half a second ago. Goswami is here. Hey, did you get your video posted? And if you didn't, and you're having difficulty with streaming software or screen capture software, then what I urge you to do is you could always weigh in on the Discord and provide a detailed description of what exactly it is that's happening, because this, it's a week later and we still don't know what you mean by lag. That's basically where I'm at. I don't really know what you mean by lag. So until we know the answer to that question, there's not a lot else we can really do. Okay, so let's get busy. Yesterday, oh good, you made a full list. Good, glad to hear it. A full list of something. Okay, cool. Never hurts to have a list of software. Oh, you mean for streaming, I bet you that's what you're talking about. Okay, so yesterday, I tell you, one thing I noticed yesterday is I didn't really realize how much fun, excuse me, swallowed wrong, how much fun I would have and have been having actually doing animation on the laptop, which kind of speaks to Goswami's issues that have come up a lot lately, because I'll say it again, my laptop is 8 years old. When I bought it, it was like $300. It was the cheapest laptop available at Best Buy, like 8 years ago. And I actually installed Linux Mint on it about a year and a half ago. So it's been running Linux Mint for a year and a half. And so just suffice to say, it's an extremely underpowered laptop. Really, really crappy computer. The worst. Basically, most people would probably say the only thing it's good for is writing. And, hey, Tiny Salad. And yet, this shot, what I did was I loaded this shot through the network onto the laptop. And I added that secondary animation of her mother kind of moving around as she says, what does she say? She says, "We do not even speak to such people." But he has nothing. Okay, so there's a few things we need to change. She said he has nothing here. So I actually need to take this line of dialogue that she has and we need to remove it. So I'm going to make a little tick list right now. Good morning, Maria. I'm going to make a tick list now of what really needs to be done. So this shot needs to have, she needs to say, but mother, I actually think if she did that, I could probably leave the lip sync in there now that I think about it, because she could say, but mother, that would work. Okay, so this, I would say the encroaching shadow needs to be a little stronger, and then I want to completely redo this shot, which is kind of sad because it's been redone twice. I did it the first time, and then I redid it not that long ago, and I like what I did based on the way the story was being told. She comes up here, she looks pretty evil, and smacks the coins away. Now, to be fair, there is a blatant error in that everything in her body language is sort of moving in the wrong direction in order for the coins to fly off that way. So, truth is, you actually could probably fix it by not doing that reversal right there, and actually just turning this all around so that her arm swings in the opposite direction. Then when it switches to this shot, we could actually come back to that shot. So there's some possibilities for salvaging this shot, actually. The problem is I don't really like her expression. I like her expression here because she's sort of got this dismissive contempt kind of vibe, right? Here she looks downright malevolent, and she really isn't supposed to be malevolent. Okay, which, by the way, informs some of the stuff that happens afterward. I honestly wonder if a couple shots being thrown in the show like you could cut to, she says this line of dialogue, remember who you are, Tianara. And then around here, while Mel is taking this in, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to actually have a shot that shows Monkey, there's Monkey, that actually would show Monkey picking up the coins and giving them back to the blind guy. I actually think that would be a pretty cool idea. So, you know, here we are fairly late in the game, still having creative ideas that inform it. And I'm looking at the comments. Feeling relieved. There's a problem with the audio for my work phone on my work laptop, but it was easily resolved. That's good. That's a good thing. Okay, so I'm going to actually stick a marker in here. I am seriously thinking maybe that would be a cool punctuation. You know, because again, even at this late date, we are still, you know, we've got a story that's unfolding. And if you look at the webisode, and by the way, one of the things I want to do is update my YouTube channel so that there's a featured playlist so that I can go ahead and, I probably should put, what I really should do is probably do ink and paint on my little jingle, my little Animation Truman Show jingle. And then just create a featured playlist that's pinned to the top that has the show webisodes. That would probably make more sense. Okay, so Mel here says, I can't remember what he says. It's something like, wow, that's rough, huh? Am I right? And Luka's like, it's pretty harsh. But we have so much. Okay, and at that point, that triggers Mom. And this shot totally needs, I mean, the characterization's horrible. I don't even know what I was thinking that day. So no big deal, but it's got to be done. So she calls Balder over. Balder looks okay, although I could probably punch up the animation a little bit. And also, now I'm thinking about it, you know, Mel's observing all of this. And then he basically says, oh well, and gets back to his business. And the thing is, that's one of the reasons why I was thinking about the monkey, is that for Mel to just say, oh well, after this, see, I kind of forgot the fact that, well, I had him sort of fixated on the girl and the fact that she's kind of been sent away by her mother. And I kind of forgot about the fact that the mother did something pretty harsh over here to the blind guy. And I don't really know if Mel should be indifferent about that. So basically he says, oh well, and then he slips and falls and, you know, there's a bit of a disaster. So I think that resolving the ethical question about Carliana's treatment of the beggar would probably not be the worst idea in the world. So I'm just thinking out loud here, folks. This is the Animation Truman Show. You get to see it as it's happening. So this is just the process I'm going through. And then the caveat sort of behind all of this is that if we get to the end of the show and the episode, like right now, the length of the episode is 27:01. Now that's not the end of the, when you're releasing something online, to a degree there's kind of a lot of latitude here, and we do have some blank space here between episodes, but basically this whole kit and caboodle should be around the 24-minute mark. So I think what's going to happen is once I get it tightened up, and are we going to see webisode? Are we going to see 5 or 6 4 to 5 minute episodes released? Don't know yet. I may get through 2 or 3. It really depends on how the drive through to the end happens, because but you know, I guess I'll say this from the standpoint of a third-party distribution situation. Frankly, if the whole thing's out there on YouTube, it's really not a big deal. Once the distribution situation happens, you just take them down, you know, because a distributor is going to want some exclusivity, you know, understandably. So anyway, like I said, thinking out loud about a lot of little things here. Hey Amar, I see you're here. Right on cue, question about software. Yes, did he ask a software question? Tahoma for animation, Audacity for sound, Xbox Game Bar for recording. Just one software for editing. Can you tell me good software for editing? Well, we already told you. You're pretty much you're looking at things like Shotcut. You can get Vegas. They have a trial, so there's that. The two softwares that I use for editing are Vegas and Blender. So that's what I do. Okay? So we'll leave that at that for the moment. There's stuff like Shotcut or is it Shotcut? Is that the one that's cross-platform and portable? Kind of surprisingly good. Hit Film Express is good too. I mean, if you're going to take the time to do the learning curve, then Hit Film Express is quite a very good editing program that its capabilities are nicely scalable. In other words, for free, you can really get a lot done. And if you want to spend a little bit of money and expand the capabilities, that's kind of their business model. I think it's a good business model. Okay, so your question, you first rely on other people's opinion. HP laptop, huh? Okay. Never asked a question about software because looking up on the internet. Well, yeah, you definitely want to do your research, Goswami, as Amar is saying. Okay. Okay, so your question has been answered, Goswami. Can't find an old version of Vegas, right? Well, it's you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. If you go the Blender route, actually, you know what the interesting question is here? Is why bother with editing software at all? If you're basically trying to do a screen grab situation, you really don't need editing software. And if you're just learning to animate, you don't need editing software. They're really, and I've looked at your channel. I know it's on your channel. I don't really see why you need to concern yourself with editing software at all at this point. It's a bit of, I could expound on why it's a bad idea, but let me think about whether I want to go there, because I got work to do. So shot 117, I don't know if this is a Krita shot or if it's a Tahoma, so I'm just gonna, we tend to favor Tahoma, so let's just check Tahoma first. I'm pretty sure this is a Tahoma shot. 117.tnz, but it definitely could be a Krita. Says it's not a scene file. Okay, so we're gonna go back to Krita. That's fine. We are software agnostic here, people. We don't, frankly, give a rip. We just don't care. Because all of our softwares are pretty good. Okay, so now this is interesting. Hang on, I gotta sneeze. Sorry. Okay, so we see that this is a couple, this is actually an earlier version of the shot, dealing with the beggar. And, oh no, I'm gonna sneeze again. I tell you, I've had the sniffles for like a week. Shotcut. Simple. Yep. Is Shotcut the one that's... Hang on, let's check something. Yeah, yes. Yes. Shotcut is a very, 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 very good solution for someone like Goswami. I would actually say that's, if you're just looking for a quick and dirty editing program that is surprisingly capable, yes, Maria, I like your recommendation. I actually think Shotcut would be a great choice for him. Probably better than anything else, because everything about the way it works, to the learning curve, everything is going to be, everything he learns is going to port to any other program he uses anyway. So, okay, 117 doesn't seem to be doing the trick, And let me double check this to see if I missed something. So I did 117.tnz and it didn't find it, so hate to... Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I must have had a typo or something. There we go. Okay, so that is the shot. Okay, so the thing I said was that the... Yes, and I figured this was done here because I figured what probably... Oh, okay, no, I am wrong. I am wrong. This is the legacy version, as we like to say. This is an ancient version where I was doing some very, very funky things with the plastic tool that conceptually make a lot of sense, but as far as the final animation goes, looked pretty stupid, actually. So we have a problem, and the problem is finding the file. So we'll double check this one more time. So sorry to make you guys sit around, but it is what it is. Okay, is the numlock not on? There we go. So we've got 117.ping.cra. Wait a minute. I'm going to check this. On the other screen, I'm just checking. Scenes. That is scene 117, so I better look in the folder, actually. I'm wondering if there's like a... Here we go. This is interesting. So background, Carliana, and carliana.ping.cra. Let me just see what this is. Now, see again, that's like the total legacy version of this. It might be more efficient, if you will, for me to just redo the shot and forget it. Just save 117 into Homa. So, again, it's a little embarrassing to have to make you guys sit through this type of thing, but you know, what are you gonna do? If I wasn't live streaming, this is what I'd be doing. You know, I'd be sitting there going, well, where's shot number 117? Somebody stole it. So I'm gonna look on my third screen that isn't patched into the screen grab or the live stream, and I'm gonna look in folder number 117. Ah, now that's interesting. That is interesting. The mystery might be solved-ish. Nope. Well, I thought maybe Blender. I opened it up in Blender, and it looks like at some point, we're going back a few months here, but at some point there was you see, there was some rigging in Blender which looks like it's woefully incomplete, but that's definitely not what we're looking for. I think I'm going to just have some fun and redo the shot, because I just don't want to sit and fight with it. Okay? You guys don't care. What is bugging me, though, is, if I go back to here, is that the first part of the shot, really, I like. Some of you guys, you would think one of you guys would remember this. A few months ago, some of you had to have been here. A few months ago, I did this shot. So I like the way the shadow encroaches. Let me look at the way that shadow encroaches. It's pretty smooth, which seems to suggest an animation tool or the plastic tool, as opposed to, you know, frame by frame tweening, which would seem to suggest to Homa. So it's a bit of a mystery, friends. So let's go to our scenes. And I'm going to actually pop down here to the tunes. So there's, here we go. 117 redo, that's it. I knew I was missing something. We'll discard the changes. This is it, I'm sure. Watch this. Yep, there we go. Okay. The mystery has been solved. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is Yeah. So this doesn't quite make sense, but I believe that this, I'm going to go ahead and switch this to full screen. I'm pretty sure that this shot was edited out anyway. I don't remember this because I didn't like yeah, she walks past. Yeah, right, exactly. So this shot is not even part of the whole thing anymore. I'm going to leave it in there because if I render and if I take it out and re-render, the ordering of the image sequence will be wrong and it'll change the edit for no good reason. So we'll just leave that little clip in there. Okay, so now what about this shadow situation? I'm thinking, whoops, I don't want onion skins. So I'm thinking that this is turned off here. Okay, so now the issue number 1, okay, that's interesting. Let's look at the render. I apparently did not use, oh, I know why. Since it's clamped to the beggar, I'm betting that I probably used a multiply. Yep, there it is. Okay, so I had the opacity at basically 11%. I want to change that to like 0.1. Gosh, let's do like 0.18, almost 1/5. Let's see what that looks like. I think I like that better. Little bit harsher shadow. So yeah, I mean this is what you do, guys. You know, when you're making a show or a movie or whatever, it's an iterative process, an ongoing process of just fine tuning. Okay, we'll go with this, and now we want to concern ourselves mainly with this section. There's a couple ways we could go. We could modify what's there, or we can try to modify what's there, or we can redo it. I actually think this expression here looks really good. This, not so much. So I would say I want to soften this look. We don't have any plastic tool on there, so we should be able to draw directly into the screen. So what I want to do is I'm going to hit the G key, sample this color, hit the V key. We are set to lines and areas, so that's good. So I just want to give her a little bit more of a cynical, squinty kind of thing going on. And I want to somewhat less emphasize her wrinkles. I mean, she's Tianara's mother. She's really not, it's not like she's old. As in, well, I say old. I'm going to sort of date some of us here. I mean, obviously, I'm 50 plus, so she's not 70, let's put it that way. And the way I've been drawing her, she looks somewhat older than I prefer for her to actually be. She would basically probably, I mean, I'm going to say she probably would have had a child late. So let's just speculate that she would maybe be in her upper 40s. Which would mean she had Tianara when she was about 30-ish. Okay, this is better. Except, this, let's hit the G key to sample that. And unfortunately, this is the part that's going to be a bit of a job, is we need to just get rid of this eyebrow. Eyebrow's got to be redone. I just don't want her to be this angry, this ornery. She's not exactly a sweetheart, but neither is she. Okay, that was stupid. Neither is she the irritated person that I sort of had her made out to be. So, hit the G key. I'm just hitting the G key, and what that does is sample the palette entry for that color so that I can then just go in and paint over it. In this case, I'm doing the paint first and then taking my brush and tightening up the so to say, ink lines. Now I'm hitting the B key so that I can gently bring in some. Okay, so if you, like, you can see that this is kind of difficult. Now what I could do is I could use the Smart Raster paintbrush tool and just set it at 1 pixel. And now that's not going to be an anti-alias line, but it's actually going to be pretty easy to manage. Let's do 2 pixels. So now what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking an expression something like this. Alright, I'm going to hit the M key and flip the canvas. Okay, actually. Boom, boom. Okay, I got to get some sort of guidelines in here a little bit. Yes. Okay, as you can see, like I said, the lines are not they're not anti-aliased. So it makes things look a little on the rough side because the edges are a bit ragged. They're stair-stepped, in other words. The question is, do we care? Well, when we render, let's hit N. So this is actual size, and I would say, no, we don't care. That doesn't matter. Go to the next frame. Okay, so now do we allow her to move into a bit of a scowly frame? Maybe a little bit. Not quite that much though. So, same situation. G key, V. I'm just going to keep rolling like I'm rolling using the Smart Raster paintbrush tool. Because at least with the Smart Raster paintbrush tool, at least I know when I draw that I'm going to be able to actually paint right over everything else that's there. So I get that benefit in exchange for having lines that, again, are not anti-aliased. I would say for me at this juncture, that's a good trade-off. Okay. Well, plus the other thing is, let's hit the other thing is we can look at the preview here. We can add anti-aliasing to the level. I showed this yesterday too, but it just does really a pretty good job. So I usually set it to 100. And as you can see, if you look really closely here, here's the difference. That to that. So it really does solve the shortcomings of the Smart Raster paintbrush tool are mitigated quite well by just adding anti-aliasing to your layer, or your level, I should say. File, save all. Alright, quick check. Hey, Hubtai McCut. Go. I don't know what that means, but I hope that isn't some sort of spammy thing. So when will we get a Salt and Light brand logo on your stream when doing Salt and Light work, with the recommendation to submit or to subscribe, hit the bell, and join Discord? Well, that's a silly question. The answer is when I get around to doing it. Actually, I'm kind of glad you asked that question. Kind of glad you asked that question. Now you notice the change in her eyebrows. They thin out a bit. I actually want to make these ones thinner. G key to sample the palette entry, and now I'm just gonna be careful. Here is what I'm doing. I am going to just zoom in, take my time, and dial this in a little bit. No, it's interesting, Amar. You know, the tug of war, for me, okay, for me, I may be different than you guys, because I'm probably the only one here who has been, self-employed for one thing, and doing relatively creative work for, 30 years. So my perspective is a little different than somebody who is maybe on a quest to get out of a 9-to-5 job and be able to have a little more control over their creative life. Okay. So it's not that I don't relate. I definitely do. But I'm also a little more smug in that I have pretty good confidence about the direction that I'm going in. So what does that have to do with your question? Well, basically, I've said here many times, how much effort have I really expended over the months and years, really, really carefully following best practices, etc., to build out and really develop my channel and my community? And the answer is I really haven't much at all, especially in the best practices department. I just haven't. So why isn't there a Salt and Light bumper? Well, because I just haven't. So for me, the tug of war, it's not like it's a problem. I mean, you know what I mean? It would be, I don't have a problem doing it. But there's a lot of things like that are basically would be helpful. If it helps expand awareness of the channel, then that's a good thing. Not because of the goal of growing the channel, but because of the goal of just basically directing attention to the show, so that when it's finally released, we have the biggest possible audience, because obviously you want to reach as many people as you can with your whatever it is you're creating, So, yeah, the short answer is that, look at Darren. I haven't looked at your channel in a while, but if you look at what Darren's done, he's doing a really good job of that. Following best practices in terms of how he attends to both the Discord and some of the things he's doing on the YouTube channel. The question always becomes, well, how's that really working in terms of sort of, to put it crassly, dollars and cents? Because this is really the tug of war we all have to dance, is what's the payoff? Okay, so if you're going to evaluate the payoff, it seems to me that a key mindset is that this is a really long-term thing. Long-term thing. Of course, I've been live streaming for 2 years at least, so for me, I guess you could say it has been a long-term thing. But I think anything you're going to do in terms of building a community and blah, 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 you really have to look at it as this is something that if I'm going to start, I'm planning to expect it to take a long time to really develop. I'm just kind of rambling. These are just random thoughts about it. So there's a tug of war between, for me, there's a tug of war between just staying focused on the only real core thing that matters, which is creating a show. Now, is that the only thing that matters? Well, not necessarily. I'm saying my mindset has been that that's the main thing that matters. So live streaming is actually just, it's just a fun way to kind of connect with people while I'm sitting here in my little cubby hole doing my thing, actually. It's pretty much what it is. There are certainly, completely aside from those best practices. So let's say that what you've alluded to in your question is best practices. Okay, so let's stop and say, well, okay, let's ignore best practices for a moment. Let's assume that there are best practices and that I don't really follow them that well. Let's just assume that, okay? So given that that's true, then what might I do that would be helpful to this community? And clearly, this is not it. Okay? That's a bold statement. Why do I say that? Well, because doing what I'm doing here, and I would emphasize, I'm saying this as if I was saying it to someone else. Doing what you're doing here, Dave, isn't either a good or a bad thing. It's not good or bad. It just is what it is, and it gets a result. Clinically speaking, there's a result. Well, what's the result? The result is pretty much, you get to a certain number of subs, and then it kind of tickles up, I don't know, it's less than one a day, but it's about one a day, probably. Right? So you gain subs, and let me see. The main thing here is I want to really dial in that expression. I don't like that expression at all. I'm going to just go big here with my brush. So what my point is, you get to about 3,000 subs, and it's not really going to get much higher anytime soon, unless I change something, right? If I change something, maybe it'll, I'll pick up a bunch of subs. Okay, so then the question becomes, well, is that important? And there is no right answer to that. It's important if I decide it's important, right? But there's just a very, very limited number of people on the planet, quite literally, that really would ever want to watch, the animation Truman Show. There just are very limited number of people. So again, like I said, I'm just rambling. There's no right answer to any of this kind of stuff. We all have to decide what we want. I talked about this yesterday, obviously. It's a key question in life. What do you freaking well want? For me, the main thing I want, seriously, is to just actually do what I'm doing. Okay? Just, every day consists of writing, animating, and then post-production and scoring of animated cartoons. And specifically cartoons as opposed to, let's just say, animated content. Because if you're a little more open-ended about it, then you could do short-form content, and there's definitely a lot of ways to probably attract more views on a video, let's say. Boom. It's kind of interesting because I was sort of running, for whatever reason, when I was sort of journaling this morning, which I tend to do every morning. I was running scenarios on a community situation. So actually, rather than rambling like I've been doing, let me shift gears here, because I think this is a topic that would actually be interesting to you guys, specifically, meaning Amar, Maria, perhaps Tiny Salad if Tiny Salad's still around. But here's the question. So the question is, what about a community thing? Okay? So for me, as somebody who has been self-employed for many years, I say to myself, well, I'm not so much interested in collaboration for its own sake, although that can definitely be a thing. Like, in other words, if you have a collaborative collective, is it, let's just say, axiomatically true that the skill level of the collective will be higher than the skill level of the individuals? And I would suggest that the answer is probably yes, but you're also going to have this really big 80-20 rule where probably most of the talent in any given area is going to really be contained, let's say, in the 20% of the individuals. Okay, so anytime you have anything that's of a collective nature, see, for me, if I was approaching a collective, so how would this look? Let me spray out the scenario here. Tell you what it would look like, and we'll just kind of follow through how this might go well or go poorly. So I say, okay, I know that I have a certain set of skills. Like, I know I can write a screenplay without, breaking a sweat, for example. No problem. I'm an okay animator. I'm kind of a pragmatic animator, so I'm okay in that area. I'm very strong on the music side, obviously. Got a pretty strong sense of, let's call it a sense of life, the way that you can, and I'm going to erase this first just to keep things clean. Okay, so my point is that when I look at somebody like, say, Full Chain Animation, or I look at Ed Tadeo, or guys that are kind of doing sort of somewhat similar stuff to what I'm doing, I'm not the most talented guy in the room. Okay. And that's probably not even true. I probably am the most talented guy in the room, but I'm not the most skilled guy in the room. Right? So that might be my bias, where I say I have great confidence in my potential. So I have areas where I have skill, but I've got areas where I probably have talent, but my skill isn't sufficiently developed yet. Okay. So, I don't suck, but I'm not, again, the most impressive guy in the room. So these are thoughts that go through my mind, because I go, well, okay, if you're gonna do something collectively, there are three components to it. Let's say, to keep it simple, there's the political component, there's the financial component, and there's the skill component. Okay, so it seems to me if you're going to do something collaboratively, first of all, it's very important that something like that be by invite only. Why? Because you really want to filter. You really don't want somebody involved in something that's a collaborative type of project unless you really have confidence in their specific, proven skill set that, in your best judgment, would contribute tangibly to the final result in all likelihood. If that recipe is not in place, you're kind of pissing in the wind inviting someone into the project. Okay? Therefore, if that's your mindset, then right out of the gate, the whole idea of a completely open-ended kind of thing is totally disqualified. Right? Like, that's never going to be a good idea. Because of the political side of it. Political meaning that what happens in the community is you always wind up with one or two people that have the loudest voice and strong opinions or whatever. And they may not be the most talented people in the room, but they're just strong in their presentation, and they wind up tending to dominate the conversation, right? And the important thing is, it's like there's just stuff that's got to get done. When you think about an animated project, what are you talking about? I mean, let's just look at this. Let's say we're going to say, hey guys, right here, well, and Maria, I'm just noticing your comment is that I think that, let me put it this way. It's really up to you guys to invite people. Now, you could say, well, that's stupid. No, Dave, sorry, Dave. It's up to you to invite people. It's your job is to market your channel and blah, 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 blah. And that's true, too. It's never either or. It's always both and. Okay, so this is coming along pretty well, actually. I'm going to hit the save. And I'm going to go ahead and render this, I think, because I would like to just kind of see how the first part of it is sitting in the show. Okay, so I'm just going to keep rambling here about this idea. So I say, I think it would be interesting because I think it would be an interesting business concept. So the business concept is that I say that the best, it comes with its downsides, but probably the best corporate structure is a company-owned company. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that if you're going to do a collaborative project, there's the possibility that this project is one day going to yield a financial benefit. So then the question becomes, well, who gets the financial benefit, right? So if you're really, really into the idea of pure democracy, then you want to say that everybody equally benefits, okay, or something like that. And I would go, well, that's probably not smart, because, like, think about the logistical 80-20 rules, for example. So you got some talented animators. But the fact of the matter is that until there's a script written, none of them have anything to do. And why is that? Well, because all of those people in the group who do fancy themselves to be creators, either because they haven't tried, or or they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the skills, or for whatever reason, they don't have content. I've seen people post stuff like that on forums, right? Where they say, I just need a story so that I have something to animate. So where do I get a story? Right? Okay. I mean, I get it. I don't really understand it from the standpoint of how hard is it to learn, how to write. Find something out there that you think is good and, sort of copy it or deconstruct it, or just sort of, try to break it down to its characteristics and sort of figure out how they did what they did. So anyway, but the problem is that my biases are coming out here because obviously I'm speaking from a vantage point that not a lot of people can share. Meaning what? Meaning that most people aren't like me. I'm not saying that to be arrogant. I'm saying it's just a fact. Most people are not going to write and animate and voice and score and edit, a show. So for most people, the collaborative aspect is non-negotiable. They have to be part of a community or they can never do something cool. Just for lack of, accept my terminology. I'm using loose terminology here because there's lots of things that are cool that aren't like this. And so for me, as an ethical guy, I recognize that problem. I say, geez, it kind of makes me sad in a way. Like, I want all these people to have both, as I talked about yesterday, I talked about both. You've got to have belief that what you want to do is possible, and you have to also believe that it's permissible. So I think about the skill aspect of it, and I also think about the emotional aspect of it. I want all of you guys here to be people who are creatively liberated, to really be able to, number one, get in tune with what it is you want to accomplish creatively. And then know that, by gum, if you just try, I really do believe you'll get there. You will. And I also believe that there's plenty of room in the marketplace for all of us. History has proven that. There's in fact, well, at least at the very least, what we can definitely say is that the appetite for more entertainment has not abated yet. Okay? So in terms of platforms that need content and stuff like that, I mean, there's never been a better time to be alive. We are in the best time to be a media creator. Now, does that mean that, see, you could argue, well, yeah, but the money's not there like it was, in 1984 or 1996. And you're correct. That is true. The ability to raise, a respectable revenue stream, it's not as good today. But that's counterbalanced by the fact that the barriers to entry, both technologically and logistically, were much, 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 much higher then, financially as well. We talked about this the other day. If you wanted to do animation, like I was doing in 1998, I had $4,000 into just 3D Studio Max software. That's a fact. I spent that money. So what tends to happen in the collaborative zone is that people of, well, actually, I tell you what, this kind of speaks to what I was talking about yesterday to Amar about sort of telling the world what your goals are and how that gets you dividends but doesn't necessarily give you the incentive that you really need to work to the rewards. So there's a lot of ideas that I'm toying around with right now as I'm talking that really do go together and compete with each other. So to sort of put the collaborative thing to bed, let me put it this way. It probably turns out that for the most part, hello, why are we not getting this color? It probably turns out for the most part that the competitive nature of how the world works, where you really do have to sort of prove yourself before you get opportunities to do something cool, it probably turns out that's a good thing, right? So in other words, if we say, well, we're all emotionally happy and healthy people with great confidence, and I don't want you to be hindered, this topic of permission I was talking about yesterday. I don't want you to be emotionally hindered from pursuing whatever it is you think you want to do. Because by golly, Dave's over here saying, you know what? I believe in you and you can do it. And I really do believe that. I actually do. But the reason you're going to succeed isn't because you were comfortable, emotionally. The reason you're going to succeed is because you get your ass busy and you do a whole bunch of work. Because that's the simple, very democratic fact of the matter, is that only the people that finish something cool even stand a chance of being able to play in the sandbox. So if you just talk about it for the next 5 years, that's fine. You may have your own process you have to work through, but the problem is at the end of the 5 years, you're not going to have anything to show for it that is actually something that anyone would want to buy or put to market or whatever. Now, the thing is that I say it's the best time ever to be alive. Here's one reason why that's true, is because if you're not a person who can create, like I'm doing, I'm creating a full 24-minute show. You may not be that person, but that's okay. That doesn't matter. Oh, for crying out loud. There's people creating short-form content on YouTube that are making way more money than Salt and Light's ever going to make. So if this type of thing isn't your cup of tea, then by all means pursue your cup of tea. But then what I would encourage you to do is pursue your cup of tea. The saddest, I guess, since I'm rambling, the saddest state of affairs, oopsie, G key. The saddest state of affairs would be if someone was watching my YouTube channel and maybe getting some kind of encouragement or something from it. I don't know. Whatever you guys get from being here. Let's say you get that. If you get that, but the cost of you getting that is that you're not doing your own thing, then that would not be a very good trade, I would say. It's very gratifying for me, but it's not that great for you because you can only vicariously live through other people's experiences so long before it runs out of gas and you realize, okay, actually I'm not really kind of getting where I want to be, kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a factor for anybody. I don't know. It's all speculation. Okay, yes, we have a problem. What I said was, this shot should actually be reversed. I'm going to look at the comments because maybe somebody's got some responses. Coming up with a story is easy. Coming up with a story I can execute within my limitations is the hard part. Okay, so Tiny Salad speaking to one of the greatest points that could have been made here. So thank you, Tiny Salad, for that. Okay. I'm gonna get esoteric on you guys. I'm gonna go esoteric here for a minute, because I want you to understand a philosophical underpinning of what I'm about to say. The short story is that the single greatest element to foster your creativity is limitations. Okay? If you're a creative person, if you're a right-brain person, you probably hold forth the conceit that if you had unlimited access to both the tools and the money, the time, in other words, if I had no limits, that then I could realize my vision. I would be able to be creative and this and that and the other. And this is part of the reason why I sort of was spanking Amar yesterday a little bit in my little diatribe there. It's the complete opposite. Complete opposite. My most successful movie was my most successful movie. I've told you guys this, but think about it. I made a list of about 6 characteristics of the movies that my distributor told me were selling well. And then I had to take those 6 things and figure out a way to get them into the script. I had to limit myself to these parameters and build the story around those parameters. So, point for Tiny Salad is, if you come up with a story, your creative process is specifically to find a way to craft the story around the limits that you have. No, unlimited resources will not help you when you don't have the time. You're completely wrong. That's a story you tell yourself. That's a story you tell yourself so that you still have an excuse. There's always an excuse. If you have a reason, then you have an excuse. But the whole idea is to not have excuses. Let me put it this way. You've got 5 guns pointed at you. You've been given 2 days, and somebody tells you, we're going to blow your ass away if you don't produce X, Y, Z. Okay? And let's just say that the objective fact of the matter is that somebody, somewhere, sometime with determination probably could have gotten it done. Okay? And now you have absolutely no choice, and you're going to die if you don't accomplish it, right? I'm going to bet you're going to find a way. You're going to find a way. So the problem is, it's one of those 80-20 things. There's one small element that has more power than all the rest of the elements combined, which is the path of escape. If there is any possibility of an excuse for failure, the propensity is to take it. Even if it's just mentally and emotionally, you give yourself an excuse. Okay? But my point in that is that the healthiest, happiest, wonderful place that you could ever get to is to admit that to yourself and realize that, and I said yesterday, this takes some soul searching. It could take a long time. It could take actually at least weeks and maybe months, and in some cases for some people maybe years. But it's really hard to get in tune to a degree with what's actually going on in your own mind and heart. It's a lot harder than one might necessarily think it is. So you give people latitude for that, right? Most of us don't know our own mind. All right, so what I'm going to do here is just change this to a negative. So I said I was going to get esoteric. What I meant was this. And this will offend somebody because it gets into sort of the whole spiritual thing. But anyway, basically the people that are into the whole like reincarnation kind of thing, their basic contention is this. And this really goes against the Christian ethic, because the Christian ethic basically says you live once and then you die and then there's judgment or whatever. Okay, so I'm not saying who's right or wrong. I'm just saying, for the sake of argument, let's entertain these ideas for a moment. Okay, so we're going to entertain the ideas. Well, the idea is that actually you think you're a mortal living a single life, but you're wrong. Actually, you're an eternal being that has lived many, 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 many lives. And this is an interesting aspect. The whole reason you are here now is because as eternal beings, let me put it this way. Right now your body consists of trillions of cells. And by the way, the majority of those cells are not you. They're part of your biome. They're actually bacteria and things like that. I probably should just redo these shadows. So let's turn this off for the moment. Okay, so every moment your body is creating cells. Okay? Cells die, cells are creative, yada, yada, yada. Okay, do you think if your body creates a brain cell right now, is it possible? Is it possible, in fact, is it even likely that the state and the condition and the lifespan and the health and everything else about that cell that's being created right now will be affected by everything else about you? Your current level of health, whether you've got cancer, what you ate for breakfast. Do you think that cell's condition will be perhaps inexorably and severely affected by its surrounding climate or environment? Well, the answer's obvious. It's obviously really easy to not just speculate, but in fact prove that the fate and life cycle and destiny of the cell that just got created just now inside of you is inexorably affected by everything that it is in fact connected to. Now there's some things it's more connected to, like the adjacent cells right nearby. But there's things that it aren't as connected to, like what's going on in your gut right now, as I said, with breakfast. But isn't it true that what's taking place in your gut is in fact going to have an effect on that cell maybe later? So we're not talking about frozen states, we're talking about ongoing progressions. We're talking about stuff that changes all the time. So if we can agree that that's how your body works, now let's expound that out to the whole universe. I know that sounds like a big thing, but let's just play with it. Is it possible that everything in the entire universe is connected? That in fact you are part of the universe? Some people would take it a little step further and offend everyone in the room and say you are a part of God. They would actually say that. And then some of the people that have a certain religious tradition would be offended by that. Okay, and we get it. Fortunately, there's latitude. We don't have to be all dogmatic about it. We're just playing around with ideas here. Well, we know that that one cell out of trillions is manifestly and provably affected by its surroundings. Well, guess what? There are those who would say that indeed you are connected, that we are connected. And I can kind of prove it, actually. So like right now, Maria, Amar, whoever, I can absolutely tell you that your physiology, your emotional state, your plans for later in the day, there's a lot of things about you right now at this moment that are literally, not figuratively, not spiritually, not esoterically, but literally being affected right now by the fact that you're listening to my voice. So are we connected? Well, you say, well, we're not physically connected. We're halfway across the country from each other. But are we connected? Does it turn out that I'm actually having an effect on you? And by the way, it's kind of like the butterfly effect, that actually that effect will last your lifetime. Now, it's going to be very, very small. That effect is going to be small, but it actually exists. Okay? It turns out we are actually all connected. So how does this get into reincarnation? Well, the point is, those who are into reincarnation say, well, here's the deal. Just as that cell in your body is actually inexorably connected to all of you, in other words, it has a context which it is inside of. And by the way, there's also an entire ecosystem the size of a galaxy inside that one cell. It's all fractal. That's not even, at this point in history, that's really not even speculation. Okay, that's been pretty well proven out. I mean, you can look at the scale of a solar system and then you can look at the scale of an atom and you find some really eerie similarities, etc., etc. Well, if this is true, here's what the theory is, guys. The theory is that in eternity, as an eternal being, you are connected to the source and you're unlimited. Okay? You're unlimited. And you don't, when you die, you just pass over, and then everything that you forgot, you remember, and it just goes on, because the whole point of eternal life is to discover and create and unfold. Okay, and we see it every time a flower grows. The truth of the matter is that flower that just grew is not exactly the same as any other flower that's ever happened. So we know and we can prove that the entire universe and the earth and the culture, the economy, everything is constantly changing and becoming something new. Now, is there sort of like fractal repeats where you're seeing trends and patterns that repeat themselves? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But at the same time, the earth as it is today, the world we live in today, has never happened before in the history of this earth. Okay, so it is evolving, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, my point is this. As an eternal creature, what you actually did, as the theory goes, here's what actually happened, is you chose your own parents. Those parents that you complain about, you actually chose them. In eternity, you said, okay, this would be an interesting experience to have. This gets back to Tiny Salad's comment, by the way. You know why? Because the whole point as an eternal creature is to adopt a life, come into as a node. You're like one node in God. You're like one cell in the body of God, let's say. Okay, and then what you're doing is you are living out an experience that you chose in order to impose limits on yourself so that you could have an experience that is creative, an ongoing process of discovery, this unfolding evolution of the world which you're part of, right? So the whole idea is you're like this unlimited creature that's chosen for a brief period of time to adopt limitations so that you can sort of contribute to this whole story of ongoing, evolving, creative development of everything that is. You're part of it. That's kind of a cool idea. Not saying it's right. Not saying it's right. Just saying that, there are people that's what they believe. Is it ridiculous, or is it maybe almost seems to harmonize more with what common sense would suggest? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. When I look at religion and I say, well, okay, how often does it turn out that the most rigid beliefs of our religions just happen by some bizarre coincidence to serve someone really, really well who's in a position of power, who wants to manipulate people? So in other words, for example, in the Christian tradition, which of course I have identified as a Christian since 1985, in the Christian tradition is the idea of hell or eternal pain, torment, judgment. Does it turn out that tradition was really, really, really beneficial to someone, particularly maybe financially? Yep, it does. Yep, because the church took indulgences back in the day, and essentially people paid to get out of purgatory and get eternal life. They had to pay to get eternal life. Well, that's convenient. Does that mean it's that the tradition is wrong? No, of course not. Let's not let's not get unscientific about it. It doesn't mean the tradition's wrong. It just means that it's suspect. It means that it's probably wrong. It's not definitely wrong, but it's probably wrong. Because anytime you see a tradition taking hold where it's pretty clearly obvious that tradition is serving the, interests of a select group who seems to be, capitalizing on that tradition to their own convenience, it kind of makes it a little suspect, doesn't it? Of course it does. You would be stupid not to see that. If you didn't see that, you'd be stupid. Again, that doesn't mean the tradition's wrong. It might be completely right. But it's also absolutely true that we don't know. If you claim to know, you're a liar, period. That's a fact. If you claim to know, you're a liar. Because unless you want to get into like near-death experiences and stuff, nobody gets to go to the other side and then come back and give a full report. They don't. And nobody who gives a full report based on some vision or something has ever once been able to verify it. Well, that's problematic. Okay? So anyway, wow, we just jumped from 5 down to 1 viewer, which is kind of interesting. So that means maybe I'm like really offending everybody. Limitations breed creativity, but some limitations directly impact the possibility of how good one can make their art. Well, yes, the thing to remember, Tiny Salad, is that we're not talking about when we as people evaluate ourselves and others, we have a proclivity to embrace the idea of a state. In other words, we want to take a snapshot and say, okay, this is the way things are. But one thing we have to remember, and this gets back to sort of the the quantum fractal nature of the universe that I was sort of talking about earlier, is that every time you take a snapshot, the situation has already changed, actually kind of a lot. By the time you take the snapshot, the situation already changed. So nothing is a snapshot. A frozen state can be informative. You can learn from it. But it's not a good rendition of reality, because reality has already changed by the time you actually can fully assess what the reality was at one given moment in time. It's kind of interesting, actually, because it's one of the reasons why I don't believe that there is such a thing as time. Now, that's a radical statement, don't you think? What? No such thing as time? What the hell are you talking about, dude? Let me explain it. I can explain it very simply. What we do know for absolute sure is that everything is in motion, right down to the atomic level. We know that everything's in motion. Okay, so now let's just say from the galactic scale down to the atomic scale, we know that everything's in motion all the time. You guys are moving right now. You might be sitting in one place, but things are still moving. The atoms and cells and molecules inside you are moving. Everything's in motion. Okay, set that aside for a moment. Now, we know psychologically that, and this goes back to feeding the issue of religion and things like that. We know that psychologically what we do as human beings is we take in data through our eyes and ears and whatever, and then we immediately begin to craft a story in our mind to tell ourselves, to explain our own reality to ourselves. We know that that's what we do. It's one of the reasons why people's memories are so spectacularly bad. The whole idea of using visual witnesses in a trial, for example, in a courtroom, is really stupid if there's any ability whatsoever to have video evidence. The video evidence will always reveal what really happened, and people's memories are notoriously bad. And we know that to be true. In fact, prosecutors seize upon that to their advantage in many cases, as well as defense attorneys. You can't blame them. I mean, okay. But my point is that psychologically, this is something we're doing on an ongoing basis. So think of your brain and your body and your experience as being something that's kind of like a feedback loop that's going on all the time, where you're taking in stuff, but you think it's real, but it's not. It's actually, it's basically smatterings of data, which you then craft into a story for yourself. And think about how I can prove this is true. I can prove it this way. Think about whatever you're looking at right now. Now ask yourself this simple question: what can I not see? Well, what you can't see right now is quadrillions of events and things and places and people all around you. Basically, 999 billion zillion zillion percent. What I mean is 99.9999999% of everything that can be seen, you can't see. Almost everything that can be known right now, in other words, just an assessment of what's going on right now. Almost everything that's going on right now, you can't know. You don't get to know it. All you get is what's right in front of you right now. So we know that at any given moment in time, right now there could be a tornado in Kansas that's taking out a farmhouse. Okay, you don't know that. You'll find out about it later on the news, but you don't know about it right now. So you can prove that that basically your experience right now is grossly limited. Really, 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 really limited. Well, how do you cope with that? Well, the way you cope with that is you craft a story in your mind to explain reality to yourself, and you make one flaming hell of a lot of assumptions. Doesn't mean your assumptions turn out to be wrong later on. Some of them are right, but some of them are wrong. So if you don't call into question your assumptions, if you're not humble enough to call into question your assumptions, as far as I'm concerned, you're amazingly stupid. How could you be that? It's like you have to try to be any stupider than that, right? But if you've crafted a story and you've told yourself that your story is true, then you're going to be offended by what I just said, and you're going to come up with all excuses, all the reasons why that doesn't apply to you. You know, I'm a logical person, right? I don't jump to conclusions or, whatever your excuse is. If you're offended by what I'm saying, then that should prove that you are in the matrix I'm describing even more strongly than I'm saying. Like, you're the most completely a victim of the matrix if you're in denial about what I'm telling you. I'm using the word matrix to describe the fact that you're living a super, super limited experience. So what does that have to do with time? Well, if we know that everything's in motion and we know that our mind creates a story, that we craft a story to tell ourselves, to explain our own reality to ourselves. If we know that that's true, and basically we do, that's not even debatable, then my theory is, because everything's in motion, your mind crafts a story, and time is just a way that we understand the idea of a... Remember what I said to Tiny Salad about states, about snapshots? Think about motion that way. Think about if you could say, let's say it's like a movie, okay? You take a picture 48 times a second. Well, it's actually 24, but then they double them. So let's say 24. So you take a picture 24 times a second. When you see the movie play back, it looks like things are moving. But we know that things were never moving. They were when you took the picture, obviously. There were physical objects moving. But when you watch the movie, your brain constructs the story based on 24 frames a second. So we know that that's something that happens all the time. We just don't know the extent to which that's actually how we process reality in general. Like, for example, I don't know what the sampling rate of the human eye is. Okay? I'm not sure. I think there is a sampling rate. But that means that it takes a picture, and then there could be actually a lot of things happening between this picture and the next one that you don't get to see. And then your brain constructs the story based on what you were able to see. And we know that's true about vision as well, by the way. It's been proven that we miss something like, I can't remember the numbers, it's something like 20 to 30% of what goes on in front of us we don't see. Okay? So time is just the way we explain to ourselves the change from an earlier state of motion to a later state of motion. And if that's true, if that's a correct understanding, then it means that time travel is not possible. Why? Because the only way you could have time travel is that you would have to be able to take the entire universe and recreate an earlier state of motion. You'd have to push everything back to where it was before it moved from there to where it is now. And obviously, nobody has the ability to completely rearrange the entire universe. So therefore, time travel isn't possible. And by the way, even if it was, you wouldn't actually have time travel. All you'd have is the recreation of a prior state of motion. So, from my point of view, there is no such thing as time. Time is just a story we make up to explain our own reality to ourselves. Pretty cool, huh? Okay. If I was a teenager in my 30s, then I have more time. Amar, that's manifestly untrue. Completely, provably untrue. You know why? I know. Because when you were in your 30s, each day, using time terminology, since I just said there is no such thing as time. But when you were in your 30s, there were 24 hours in a day. Guess what? Now that you're in your 50s, or 40s, I think you might be in your 50s, but guess how many hours there are in a day now? There's still 24. So you didn't have more time when you were in your 30s. And besides, you can think of it elegantly about how life works. You're wiser now, so you use your time more intelligently. You can filter out the useless side roads better now than you could when you were 30. So even though you had more time when you were 30, actually, it's probably provably true that your ability to use less time now actually gives you greater resources than you had when you were in your 30s. So theoretically, it sounds right that you had more time when you had less responsibility, let's say. The reality is, in terms of usable time, you got to make a distinction between how much time you have and how much usable time you have. Okay? Remember, I only tend to work on this show about an hour or two a day. It may take 5 years to get the whole series done, but who cares? Right? I could be live streaming for 5 hours, but come on, let's be honest. If I live stream for 5 hours, I would actually get about 45 minutes of actual work done. I mean, look how much I've been blabbing today. So, okay. So Tiny Salad says, such as having music will make something better than not having it, for example. Well, that's right, Tiny Salad. So now it's up to you to reach out to people like me or others to say, hey, I need some music for my video. So you have to do something about it. And guess what, Tiny Salad? If you freaking well do something about it, what you will find is you will be amazed. You will be amazed. This is why I say it's a problem of permission and belief. If you really believed that the music you need for your show is already out there and available to you, it's already there. This is one of those law of attraction things. This is getting esoteric. Let's just say, you're saying I need music, and I say, well, Tiny Salad, let me ask you a question. Is there music out there in the world? Anywhere? Somewhere? Oh, now that's a stupid question. There's music everywhere. We have lots of access to music. When you say, well, but I can't use that music. I'm not allowed to use that music. Well, okay. Is there music that you are allowed to use? Yes, there is. If you said to me, Tiny Salad, hey, Dave, do you have something in your archives? You've written the musical score to 10 movies. Well, okay, I'm sorry, 8 movies, and I'm working on the show. Do you have something in your archives somewhere there, Dave, that I could just maybe use to tap, over top of this animation I'm working on? Would that be okay? I mean, could I do that? And Dave would say, yeah, why not? No problem. No problem. All you had to do was ask. Well, guess what, friends? That's how the whole freaking universe works. Got bad news for you. You've been telling yourselves all kinds of lies. All you ever had to do was ask. And we make up all kinds of excuses. Why? Because we can come on a channel like this when we haven't asked and we haven't made that effort. And we make all kinds of excuses about all the limitations and all the things we can't do and all the ways that it can't work. It can't possibly work. And I say, well, have you tried? No, it can't work. And why would I do that? Why would I say it can't work? Here's why. Because when I say it can't work, I look smart here on the channel, here in the discussion. I look smart, like I'm wise. And I get what Dave talked about yesterday. I get a dividend. And the amazing thing about that dividend is you don't even get the dividend. It's a total story you're telling yourself. You tell yourself that those guys that are here in the group here as I make this comment, that they think I'm smart. Nobody's saying, oh, by the way, so-and-so, you're so smart. Nobody's actually saying that. But you actually come away from the chat saying, wow, I came off pretty good in that discussion. Boy, I was looking smart today. And you make up this story for yourself in order to not feel bad about the fact that there's all these limitations in your life. And the problem is that those limitations don't exist either. They're just a story. Tiny Salad, if you need music in a show, and you don't have to ask me, are there at least 1,000 people, I don't know if you're in the United States of America, but are there at least 1,000 people in the United States of America who have some music available that they're legally able to license to you, that if you would just ask them, which would require you to do the effort of trying to first find them, is it possible that there are 1,000 people in the United States of America that if you just freaking asked, hey, I'm doing this stupid little cartoon and I just need some music, can I use that music? And they'd go, yeah, sure, of course, hell yeah, why not, no problem. I'll email you an MP3. Guess what, Tiny Salad? What you'd find is that everything you need is already there. It's already available to you. I mean, it's not even esoteric. It's not even magic. This isn't magic. Well, I asked and then the universe manifested it for me. That's not what I'm saying. You don't need magic. Right? Valerie agrees. No magic. She's walking through the room. Valerie would say, no magic required. If you ask, it's probably already there. You just didn't ask. You didn't look. And so this gets back to what I was talking about yesterday. The question becomes, why would a person not ask? What the hell is going in a person's mind that they want something, but they can't have it, and they don't even ask? Think about it, people. Why would you not ask? That's crazy. It's simple. You're afraid. That's it. You're afraid. That's the problem of the human condition. You're afraid. You're either afraid of being judged, you're afraid that somebody will say no, you're conditioned with shit your parents told you when you were a kid that psyched you out in some way. You've been told that if you want to get a job, you need a 4-year degree, let's say, or whatever. And you just believed it. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Just ask. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Every single limitation you point out to me, I'm going to be able to say, no, you're full of it. That limitation isn't real. You're inventing that limitation. You're inventing it. Until you look in the mirror and say to yourself, you know what? It's true. It's true about me. I have been lying to myself. I have been making up excuses. I have been afraid. I haven't had the courage to try or to ask. I've told myself a story about how the world and the universe is against me. Until you look in the mirror and face that truth, you cannot advance. Because the whole point of the process, if you are esoteric about it, you believe this. You'd say the whole point of the process is for you to learn this lesson. And guess what? If you don't learn the lesson, then you get to go through the whole thing again until you do learn the lesson. Think about that one. If you don't face the truth, you will just get the same response again from the universe, so you have another opportunity to learn the truth. Why the hell do you guys think that people go from one bad relationship into another relationship that turns out to be just as bad, with many of the same patterns emerging? This is why. You were the problem all along. The relationship wasn't the problem. Your partner wasn't the problem. In fact, the weakest person in the room is going to say, well, wait, what about the person who's abusive? They're going to go to the extreme case in order, once again, to avoid the possibility of even facing the fact that it was all your fault in the first place. Don't do it anymore. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying don't do it anymore. Stop. And in that context, the best question you could ask yourself, and again, you might have to puzzle it out for a year, or a week, or a month, or a day. The best question you could ask yourself is, what do I want? And tell yourself the truth. For me, here's the truth, friends. I'm really, really, really happy to be able to just sit here. I've got a wonderful partner in Valerie. I'm content with my life. I don't have a wolf at the door financially. If I can write, animate, score, just basically have this creative life where I'm just cranking out cartoons. I just do what I do, right? For me, that's all I need. I'm good. I'm good. I don't really need anything other than that. I seem to get some benefit out of going on here and talking to you guys in this way that I am today. I feel like I'm more in tune with what I really believe. To me, this stuff is really important. It's really, really important because so many of us are so shackled by just stories we tell ourselves that are just BS. And then once you get past that, well, then it's a process. It's going to take, months or years for you to actually get to whatever your goal is. But my point is that I can say emphatically is that the answer to what you want is already there. It's already there. It's already in place. The infrastructure, the tools, the assets. You might have to do some work on your skill set. Whoop-de-doo. Who doesn't? You should work on your skills, because why should you get a reward you haven't earned, right? I'm not the greatest animator on the block. I'm not the greatest artist on the block. I'm just okay. In fact, that's absolutely manifestly true of me. I am not great at anything. I'm a pretty darn good writer. I will say I'm a pretty darn good writer. But everything else about animation, I'm just average, man. I'm average. If not borderline sucky in some areas. So for me, I'm just like kind of your average team that you might throw together, and that you're not going to get the best guy in every department. You're just not. Nobody does. So, on to the next shot, right? I flipped this around and I think it worked. So she comes up here. I changed her expression a bit. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I need to change. This needs to be So it's really weird because today I'm getting like more concurrent viewers. The answers are all there. I just don't like some of them. Well, there's that too. And I think that remember what I said earlier about states versus process? This is really important to remember, is that there is this balance. It's one of the topics that's kind of neglected when people talk about these things, like the law of attraction and how this all actually works. It's important to understand. And quite horrifying when it happens, but what can happen is you can do a ton of soul searching, and with your current level of information and intelligence and emotional well-being, when you put everything together that is you do this soul searching, you come to the conclusion that this is what I want, this is my goal. Well, it can turn out, this actually is what brings this conversation back to its start. It can turn out, because this is a process, that you embark on a certain direction because you've finally done the hard work of figuring out what you want. And then you get a week into it, and you discover stuff that you not only didn't know a week earlier, but you couldn't have known, okay? You discover new information that reveals to you that actually I didn't want this as much as I thought I did. That can happen. And it's not a bad thing. But it's an important thing because if you go through that process, let me tell you this. You can have a creative monkey on your back where you say there's something you want. I can say this from experience. I don't want to get into the specifics of what it was in my case. But it's a creative thing. Where you have a creative monkey on your back where your capabilities aren't really where you want them to be. And then what happens is, you what I just described, where you get more information, you find out you didn't really want this thing as much as you thought you did. And then I say to myself, I look back and I go, oh my gosh, I had this monkey on my back for years for something that I really didn't even want. So if I would have gotten past the emotional barriers and found out way earlier, right, then I wouldn't have had that monkey on my back for all those years. You see what I'm saying? So this is why it's really cool to and important to get in tune with what you really want, is so that you can go find out as quickly as possible if it's going to work or not work, and why. You know, that's very, very important. And again, that's why a channel like this is probably never going to have that many subscribers, because there's really not that many people on the planet that can really relate to what I'm doing, or would even want to do it. Why would you want to do this? Some people who are a lot more collaboratively or community oriented or relationship oriented might find the whole idea to be a real turnoff. Like, I would never want to create a show like this unless I was creating it with a team, let's say, which is totally valid. You know, for me, I think that there's plus sides and downsides to a team, such that, at least at this point, for me, the downside feels like it probably is greater than the upside. You know, that's all. No big deal. So, okay, where are we at? So, oh yeah, I said I was going to change her expression, so I apologize for being a little bit of a doofus here. Okay, so now what we have is, so what we need to do is go into these three drawings and change her demeanor a bit. So I hope you guys don't find the this discussion too boring. You know, for me, the reason I stayed on this tangent so long is because this information that I'm giving today is, in fact, the most important thing. Like, there is actually nothing else in life that is as important to me as these ideas. Because they basically inform what you do. They inform how happy you are while you're doing it. They affect everything about your life. I don't think that a person can actually be truly happy until they can wrap their head around the concept of personal responsibility. You have to, all of this stuff maps back to personal responsibility, and that's why some people would say that it is spiritual or esoteric or whatever you want to say, is that the whole point of the human experience is to experience personal responsibility. In other words, you get to choose. It's like Neo said in The Matrix, the problem is choice. You know, he was kind of right. You know, if you think, well, you chose this experience that you're having right now. Wow. Everything maps back to personal responsibility. If you accept personal responsibility, then you understand that all of you, absolutely, maybe not all, okay, but certainly the vast majority of the conditions you're experiencing right now in your life, really, if you go back carefully over your entire life and look at all the choices you've made, you're probably going to come to the conclusion that where I'm at is basically where I put myself. I need to go Control V. Control V. Okay. And if you can accept that, and you say, well, Dave, why does this even matter? Why are you even talking about this? It's a fair question. If people want, no, put it this way, to put it crassly, if people want to waste their life or be miserable, that's kind of their prerogative, you know. You know, why do you care? Yeah, that's a fair question. Okay, that's better. I like her expression now better. Boom. Okay, so now she swung her arm this way, and her arm is up. So this is a Krita shot, I'm pretty sure, that really needs some work. Let's go look at 119. I wouldn't talk about this stuff if I didn't care, okay? So even though I'm basically a recluse, the truth of the matter is I care about people a lot. I've been really, really careful with my son Kyle, for example, to always not have the dynamics in my relationship with my son that so often are prevalent in relationships between parents and their kids, where the kid kind of at the end of the day doesn't really necessarily feel like their parent is like on their side in things. I just can't be down with that. Let's see, where is Carliana? There's Mel. There's the coins. Aha! These guys are in a group, so there's the beggar. Ah, there she is. Ma. I had it down as Ma, and I was kind of seeing that as Mel, so we'll call it Carliana. Okay, what are we going to do here? This is going to be tricky. She has... Well, actually... Think about this for a second. Okay, so what we have is a really... this drawing might not be as far off as I think it is. Let me hit the... Okay, so yeah, I am going to anchor this down here. And that may actually solve the problem right there. Right? Because she... Excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. Because she swings her arm down. Yeah, and so it's just that her pose was completely wrong. Now that's way more... doggone the sneezing. Okay, let's accept that. I'm gonna do liquefy here. I'm gonna try to liquefy this into shape. Well, that didn't quite work out very well, did it? Boom. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the B. Did I just stretch her hand? I better undo that and double check. Little bit. Yeah, that didn't work. Okay, so let me... being a little bit careless here. Okay, let's do that again. Let's liquefy just... Oh, come on. Seriously, dude? Alright, that was stupid. let's do one last attempt. We have to make sure. So I want you guys to have fun, and I guess I have a theory, and my theory could be wrong, but my theory is that a lot of the people who would ever show up on a channel like this are probably, a lot of them are what I would call frustrated creatives. They're people that sort of have a vision for something they'd like to do, and for whatever reason are trying to figure out how to overcome some limitations logistically or creatively or in terms of their skill set. Oops. Okay, not bad. Bless you 30 times in advance. Bless you 30 times in advance. If I can believe in magic in a young girl's heart. Wait. See, I can speak with authority to Amar about the difference between when you're older, because I'm older than he is. Can't comprehend, so how can we even think we understand a building that created everything? It shows our inherent arrogance as human beings. Oh, I see. Okay, so Amar's making a good point in terms of what we can factually know is really either true or how things work. He is correct. However, my contention is this. If in other words, if in practical terms, we know, okay, put it this way. Let's just say there's something in front of you right now, like a pencil or something, okay? Let's say there's a pencil on the desk. Okay, so now I want you to really think and visualize and get real esoteric and even pray for the pencil to levitate. Did it work? It probably didn't work. Okay, so now I want you to reach out and pick up the pencil. Okay, so now we have two contrasting approaches to life. The esoteric approach and the practical approach. The practical approach says, it turns out that if I reach out to pick up a pencil, the likelihood of the pencil rising up is enormously greater than if I didn't reach out and pick up the pencil. Enormously greater. Okay? Well, if your proclivity is to complain or make excuses, then what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, yeah, but that's what stuff that's right in front of you, but for the things that I want to do, there's this limitation or that limitation or this problem or that problem. Okay? So I say, well, yeah, but I gave an example a little while ago where Tiny Salad said, well, I have a big problem because I need music. And I said, well, did you bother to ask me? Not that, you might not want my music. Of course, I get that. But I'm saying that, I kind of blew that argument out of the water right now by saying, look, if you really need music for your cartoon or whatever you're working on, all you had to do is ask. Okay, so the question is, what's a better paradigm? What's a better vantage point from which to approach life? To say, oh, there's this limit, there's that limit, oh, there's this problem, there's that problem. Is that a better vantage point? Or is it a better vantage point to say, well, I'm going to try. I'm going to ask. I'm going to make the effort. And then what's going to happen is this feedback loop where things are going to go wrong. I told you guys yesterday, I said the universe, when you finally get serious about what it is you're trying to achieve, immediately the universe is going to reward you with everything going wrong. Because you're going to be tested, in all likelihood, to see how bad do you really want it, how committed are you to this goal. And it turns out, this is provably true, is that everyone who ever succeeds, think about this and really just, this will be the wisdom for the day. This is the thing you ought to ruminate on and just think about all day long. It turns out that everyone, 100% of the people who succeeded didn't quit. Think about it. By definition, everybody who succeeded did not quit. Now, ask yourself, of all the people who didn't succeed, what percentage of them quit? Where if they'd hung on for another month, or another year, or another 10 years, eventually they'd have gotten there. Is it more likely or less likely that if they hadn't quit, they would have gotten there? Of course, it's enormously more likely. How do we know that? We know that because we know for one thing is for sure is that everybody who did succeed didn't quit. That's axiomatically true, right? So what's a better paradigm from which to approach life? This is where Valerie blows all my esoterica crap out of the water, because she says, well, all these things about thought and imagination and belief, that's all good, but it's actually all sort of in one category. That entire category is mitigated by the opposing category, which is action. So thought and belief is all very important, but it's also completely can be to a large degree rendered irrelevant by a person whose basic orientation is towards taking action. So it's probably interesting and probably almost certainly true that the kind of people who would gravitate to a YouTube channel like this, being creative people, are probably people who tend to orient toward thought, belief, emotion, as opposed to being highly action-oriented people. In other words, if you were an action-oriented person who says, I want to create a cartoon, let's say, and you just get to it, and you just put your nose to the grindstone, you work away, and if you can't do something, you go find somebody that you can either beg or hire or ask to do it for you, or you join a team, or you form a corporation. You do something in order to get this thing done. If you were an action-oriented person like that, would you really be here? Would you be here watching some guy on his YouTube channel? Or would you be busy doing your thing, making your thing? Sorry. We know the answer to that question. Now, there is a balance. There's a balance. You can plug away and make progress, and at the same time, be part of a community too. It's all good. So, no, make no mistake about it, friends. When I say these things, I'm not just talking to you guys. I'm talking to myself. These are all things that I myself have dealt with. I wouldn't know what I know and understand what I understand and say what I say if it wasn't for the fact that I've made all the mistakes. I really, 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 really have. And so I have a lot of empathy for people who struggle creatively. I'm totally like an emotionally tilted person, without a doubt. I am absolutely the model example of everything I'm talking about that it seems like I'm being critical of, but I'm really not. I'm just saying, look, there's a pathway out of this conundrum. There's an emotional, creative conundrum that we all have that prevents us from necessarily believing that we can do and be and have what we want. And so step one is to figure out what you want, obviously. And then step two is you got to believe that it's possible and that it's permissible. And then you have to get busy and see what goes wrong. Because there will be things that will go wrong. There absolutely will. There will be frustrations and heartaches and challenges and software crashes. But that's all just part of the process. And nobody who gets there doesn't have that. That's my point. Nobody who gets to success doesn't have to go through all that. The only difference is that they don't give up or they don't quit, and maybe they waste less energy complaining too. Who knows? So I think we got this. Okay, so now I think I'm going to wrap up. It's been almost 2 hours, and I haven't really actually gotten much work done, so it's probably important that I stop live streaming and actually kind of work in isolation for a bit. Okay, so bless you 30 times in advance. I want to say, Amar, I really don't know what you meant by that comment. Bless you 30 times in advance. I don't know if that was a bit of a joke based on sort of the whole idea of like the law of attraction, and maybe I'm thinking, or maybe you were just being kind and saying, hey, bless you. I don't know. So only by a year maybe, and that may not have been directed to me. That may have been directed to Tiny Salad. I have no idea. When you sneeze. Oh, the sneezes. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. Only by a year maybe. Well, most of the world is full of quitters than doers. If we was as determined as an ant, then we would never be defeated. That's true. I mean, you're right. taking that's really kind of the mindset I'm evolving towards. When I say that I'm happy and good just to do the work, I really mean that, and that's why I suck. This gets back to your original comment at the beginning of the session today. The reason I haven't really done the best practices things that have to do with the community aspect is that at the end of the day, that is not what's going to make me happy. The community aspect, it's fun for me to talk about these ideas because the ideas are important to me. Okay, that is true. But once I've said them a few times, I'm probably going to run out of gas and not need to say them anymore. You know what I mean? Because it isn't about the community per se for me. It's really more about the work. And that's what I want. See, I keep talking about, well, what do you want? That's what I want. I want to just do the work. Drawing, animating, writing, scoring, cranking out intellectual property, just cranking it out. To a degree, I think live streaming has been therapeutic for me because it is, in fact, a forum where I can talk about some of these ideas that have affected my life. So that's cool. If someone finds it helpful, I hope they do. I truly hope they do. But I'll temper that by saying this. I don't think anybody does this type of really honest soul searching to figure out what they want, to figure out what they really believe, to figure out what they're afraid of. I don't think anybody goes through that process in a way that is not extremely unique to them. And so, how helpful really can I be? I don't know. So, okay, one thing I want to say about Carliana here is, actually, I think we're okay. So this is shot number 119. I'm going to go ahead and get this rendered, look at it in the show, and then I'm going to sign off. 119, okay, ping. Okay, so let's go back here, because you guys, I mean, give me some feedback here. Is this been completely useless today? I mean, I'm talking about all this stuff, and if you're going, I mean, for some reason you've stuck around, but I'm very curious. Is this all just like, like, what the hell are you even talking about, Dave? Why are you, or does this help you in some way? I mean, give me something here, people. And I mean that really sincerely for this reason. If it turned out that I'm just pissing in the wind, talking about these, things that ostensibly are important to me, I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. If it's like, nobody cares really kind of thing. It might be a lot better to just shut the hell up and draw your cartoons. Each day you move one step closer to your goal is a win. That's a good way to look at it. Because unfortunately, you can only make so much progress in one day. It just is what it is. Okay, so I think we got that rendered. Some of it useful, some not. Yeah, cool. Well, this is the thing I've been thinking about. The thing I have definitely been thinking about live streaming is I've thought, I enjoy being able to rant about whatever's important to me that day. Okay, I do. But I think the only reason I enjoy it is because I kind of think probably it's useful in some way. I don't know that it's necessarily what I really want to be doing. This is one of the things I'm thinking about in terms of what I want. I actually think what I really want is just to quietly just do the work. Like right now, just evaluating this and just figuring out how I can make it a little bit better is more my happy place than talking about all these deep things. There may be a time and a place for that. I don't know. Most of us want it now. In reality, it'll come when we're ready. Well, that's what I said yesterday. I said if you were actually ready for what you say you think you want, you would already have it. Actually, I absolutely believe that's true. I'm not ready to have, whatever the definition of success would be for a show like this. I'm not ready for it yet. I don't deserve it yet. And I don't say that as it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's just the reality is, it is what it is, and I accept it, and it's fine. That's why it's so important to enjoy the process. You can't be about the goal or the destination. The destination is going to be forgotten in a day, even if it's financially, even if it's profitable. Money disappears fast. Money disappears quickly. It's forgotten. Okay, so now we're up to this. It's useful because it inspires and shows regardless of where it is. It shows that you're trying what most are afraid to do. Yeah, I guess. I'm sure that's probably true. If that's true, though, Amar, my question is, what are people afraid of? Like, what would you be afraid of in regard to? Okay, let's assume, to keep it really simple, let's assume everybody wants to do something along the lines of what I'm doing. They want to create a show, let's say. Okay. Now, obviously, that's not true. A lot of people don't want to create a show. But let's just say, for simplicity, if you, Amar, could have your wish, it would be something kind of along the lines of what I'm doing. It'd be a completely different type of show, different characters, different everything, different look. But the basic concept is you'd be creating a show, and then you'd ultimately probably make some money from it so that you can sort of take a deep breath and relax and say, okay, now I'm going to spend the rest of my life just doing that, like creating shows, and at least I'm getting along. I'm okay. Is that pretty close? So then the question for me is, really, truly, what is it? I'm not saying what's stopping people, because then people would say they're going to come up with whatever their excuses are. So it's not what's stopping people. I'm saying what would you be afraid of? Okay. It's useful, but most are afraid to do. So they would rather judge on quality or their expectation based on what they like or could do. Oh boy, I got to unpack that. For me, I know honestly I need to be doing it full time, like every day. Okay, so I'm looking at, you got some typos, so I have to ferret out what you actually said here. There would rather judge on quality. So you're saying people? Let me ask you to do a very courageous thing. Restate, like the last three comments, restate them only completely from a personal vantage point. In other words, what you like. They would rather judge on quality of their expectation based on what they like or could do. Okay, I think what you're saying is, I'm afraid to try something which I think is outside of my potential. I'm not, like what I want to do, I'm not ready to do yet. I'm not good enough. I don't believe I could do it. That type of thing. It sounds like that's maybe what you're saying, is the thing one would be afraid of. So you're afraid to try something that you fundamentally think you will probably fail at. And I guess what I would say, I go back to Tiny Salad's comment. If somebody said to me, that's their real, truly, that's their fear. Okay. All right, hang on. Okay, so for me, I know honestly I need to be doing it full time every day, but you can't have that right now. You can't have that, so therefore there's no point fixating on the idea that you need to be doing it full time. Would that improve your skills? Of course it would. The more you do of something, the better you get. But that's not useful. That very idea is not useful. Okay, so in a year I'd be able to produce the type of animation I want to do. Okay, so when you say the type of animation you want to do, let's unpack it. Let's really deal with this, okay? So when you say the type of animation, what do you mean by the type of animation? That could mean so many things. That could mean how good you are at capturing emotion and attitude. People that attend your streams may think, people that even attend your streams may think or judge your project or animation. They would prefer to take that approach versus doing what they want. I'm not sure what you mean by think or judge. I mean, they're going to be, I think, if I'm understanding this, there's an extent to which absolutely people vicariously live out what they kind of want to do or are interested in through people that they feel are better than them at it or whatever. Castlevania. Okay, all right. Then that's getting down. Now we're getting concrete. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so that's on Netflix. Oh, and it's an anime type thing. Okay, I'm going to turn off the audio here so I don't get busted, and I'm going to watch a little bit of the trailer. Okay, so I'm looking at the animation. I'm seeing a pretty good balance of stuff that could be done with hand drawing frame by frame, but also a large contribution of digital tools. I will say this, Amar, in terms of your drawing style, you're not far off. You're not far off in terms of your drawing style. So what can you get real concrete and specific here about? I'm looking at the trailer for season 4. Okay, what is it exactly and precisely that keeps you from being able to do? What is it you're seeing in Castlevania that you think you can't do without it taking years? Well, no, I don't. I take issue with that. If I look at one shot in Castlevania, that's all I need to do is look at one shot. One shot in a show is typically going to be 3 to 5 seconds. So that doesn't take a year. That doesn't take a year. That doesn't take full time. That doesn't take any of those things. So I'm looking at this right now. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. There it is. Boom. Okay, so the question is, so if you say that that's that shot right there, or that shot right there, or that shot right there, if you say that's not enough for you, then what that means is there's something about the idea of the scope of it that scares you. But I would argue that that's not a very good way to look at it, because if you do one shot that's comparable to this, and assuming you're kind of socially connected and whatnot the way you are, that if your skill for just one shot is at this level, then that will open doors of communication and community that may lead to opportunities to do more and more and more of it. The level of animation, the background details, or set design. Well, what I strongly encourage you here on this is get real specific, because look at this. I mean, just look at this. How would I do this? Okay. Number 1, I'd fill the whole screen with black. Number 2, it's not like these rocks are hard. A little bit of scribble noise with a slightly lighter. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. Okay, so I looked at this, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to fill this with black, and then I just put in, and you got this variation from reddish to greenish, so there's gradients in here. Well, ignore that. The gradients don't matter. You're going to add the gradients later. So what really is here? All that is just a little bit of a noisy texture at a slightly higher value than the rocks. So that's not hard. Filling it in with black's not hard. Coloring in the texture of the rocks isn't hard. This one's even easier because they did it even more simply down here. This is just, this desk thing, this is just a bunch of horizontal lines. That's all it is. Line, 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 line. A couple vertical lines. So there's nothing hard about that. So this is the interesting thing. This is just text. You could do this in Inkscape and just lay it in and then deform it. You could deform it in Blender or whatever. So you just add a bunch of text. The cloth, there's nothing hard about the cloth. It's just a shape that kind of goes from black to red. And then you add some gradients in overlay mode over the top of it. The characters are easy too. There's nothing here that you can't draw. There's nothing there that you can't draw. I've seen your drawings. I know what you can do. There's nothing hard here. Okay? So now I do agree that sometimes, like the animation part of it, you've got this, this glow. There's nothing hard here. Look at that. What really just happened there? You got a single drawing of the guy's head. Okay, so from here, his nose went from up here to down here. The whole head could have been the same drawing. One drawing. The girl never moved. Is it a girl? Yeah. So the girl never moved. So you need one drawing. You do one drawing of this. The background is non-existent. You do the bricks the way I just said. You add a gradient so it's darker at the top, and then defocus it. So this shot, which looks pretty darn good, and then if you want to get fancy schmancy, you'd add another gradient on the girl, right? Because there's a little gradient going across her head. But again, I mean, I just say there's nothing hard here. And this is what I often find to be the case. What looks hard in total as an aggregate experience, actually, when you start looking at the individual components that make it up, nothing about it's hard. There's nothing here that I see that's hard. Look at that. That shot was literally one still image. The camera just panned over one still image. Nothing to it. It's got the rain in the background, but that would take you, like, what, 5 seconds to animate? Still image. Look at that. Static face. All that moved was his mouth. It's static image. There's nothing there. Nothing there. Same thing there. Look at that. Static image, and all that moved was his hand. So I've just by random chance grabbed 5 shots in a row, all of which are nothing. They're all just nothing. I can't believe you can't possibly be responding to the technical or creative difficulty of this. You're responding to the emotional experience of how it feels when you take it in as a show. And what do you think those guys in Hollywood, if they are in Hollywood, what do you think they do? Think about it. What do they actually do? What do they do with their minutes and their hours? They get up in the morning, they go to work, what do they freaking do? They do exactly what I'm doing right here. They just look at the storyboard and go, okay, well, here's what we need. Well, by gum, I've got 10,000 shots to do, so I better do as little as possible. Better keep it simple. This is easy. This one is a little harder because you've got to do the head turns. But I'm telling you, right there, static shot. The foreground is defocused, the background isn't. Look at that. That was it. I've looked at like 30 seconds here, and I have not seen one thing that I would even call remotely difficult, especially with somebody of Amar's ability to draw. Nothing. Not one thing that's difficult here. It's the experience. You're overreacting to the experience and letting it spook you. Amar, you could do this. Like right now, today. You could do this. This is well within your ability. Oh my God. Poof. I've said all I need to say. There's no question. It's well within your ability. Holy cow. Dude, you can do this. And you can do it now. You can do it, and you can do it now. If you want to, you can step through the YouTube animations frame by frame. I didn't think about that. Yeah, let's all take today. This is what, we've been going here for 2 hours. The whole point today is for everyone as a collective community to agree that what Amar has specifically identified as what's kind of like what he would like to do, we have taken a look and we've determined, Amar, there's no question, no doubt at all, with your ability today, not tomorrow, not a month from now, but actually we know how well you can draw. I've seen your drawings. Based on what you are capable of today, you could be doing Castlevania. No question about it. There's just not even a problem here. There is no problem. Which, by the way, kind of goes back to everything I've said for 2 hours. If there is a problem, it's all in your head. And there's nothing to be afraid of. If you created a 30-second trailer for your concept, just like that was the Castlevania trailer I was just looking at. If you create a 30-second trailer, there's always going to be something to be afraid of. Like if I created something that was kind of along the lines of what I just saw, then what I'm going to be afraid of is, well, now somebody's going to criticize me for copying Castlevania. Right? There's always something. There's always some reason why, some people out there that I don't even know, don't like, don't respect, are going to have some beef with something I did. Right? There's always a reason. It's ridiculous. Nope, you can do this, buddy. There is no question at all. I screwed up my interface here, and oh my God, I wish I hadn't, because now I can't get the stupid... I can't get the timeline to be side by side. Actually, I fixed it the other day, didn't I? I think I did this. Yes! Ah! Thank goodness I set up a preset. Oh my gosh. I forgot about my animation preset. So anyway, that's it for me. I'm done. Salute to you and everyone. Thanks everyone. I can be a knucklehead. No, you're not a knucklehead. Don't think of it that way. Sometimes, put it this way, brother. If you're in a stone room, okay, and you're imprisoned, and then somebody walks in the stone room and reveals a hidden door where there actually is a little thing in the stone wall that you couldn't see, okay? When somebody opens that stone wall, you have a choice. You can complain about the fact that you've been locked in the room for 2 years and didn't even realize you could get out at any time. Or you can walk through the freaking door. You know? So I'm saying, dude, you know what? Like, conscientiously neglect anything negative at all and just say, no, I'm going to walk through the door. And if you create that 30-second trailer, the likelihood is that some way that you don't know, that you can't predict, is that it'll open a door. So you walk through this door, and then doing that work will open another door of opportunity or ideas, whatever, help people, that come out of the woodwork to either help or encourage or employ you, something. You don't know. But you can never find that out until you've done that hard work. So my advice is, geez, the hard work's going to take you, if you did something comparable to what I just saw, God, man, I'm really thinking right now, I'm kind of staring off into space and thinking about this like a business. You've got, if it's a 30-second trailer, we're going to assume, you're going to say, well, I don't have a story, I don't have a script. Nope. Can't have that excuse. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to assume no script required. We're going to assume that the trailer has to be a conduit to actually figuring out what the story's even going to be, and you don't know yet. Okay, so let's start there, because then you have to move forward, and you can't use the non-existence of a script as an excuse. Okay, so now you say, well, where's my story going to come from? Well, there's many paths you could go for that, but let's say you're going to create the trailer, and it's going to be based on Dracula. Let's do Dracula. So, because it's Castlevania, so we'll do a Dracula thing. All right, and in our Dracula, we're going to flip everything upside down. Instead of being in the 1700s, it's modern. And instead of Dracula being a guy, it's a girl. It's a girl vampire. Okay, so now we got a girl vampire, and now we've got the hero shows up, finds out that maybe there's a vampire thing going on. It's kind of scary. And I think you can take it from there. So you think like a trailer, you've got these very brief impressions that each last about 3 to 5 seconds that comprise essentially a trailer. You say, well, I don't have music for a trailer. Don't worry about music for a trailer. We can get music. Okay, fine. So that's not a problem. The only problem is drawing the characters and then the backgrounds and making them move. That's literally the only thing. If you can get that right, everything else will take care of itself, let's say. Okay, we're going to make that assumption. If I draw the characters and then you're going to add gradients or whatever, you draw the characters, draw the backgrounds, and make them move. And now, working within the limits, you say, well, I don't want this to take more than a month. Okay, you don't want to take more than a month, then you need to do exactly what the Castlevania people did, which is, we're going to move as little as possible. What was that? 3 out of 5 shots, the characters didn't even move. They were static images, right? That's a fact. I looked at it just now. I saw it. I looked at 4, 5, 6, 7 shots, and there was very, very little motion. I mean, there was motion, but it wasn't motion. It was camera moves and stuff, right? Or the one, it was a static image where the only thing that moved was his hand, which is just another drawing emerging from behind the character. Okay? So that's what's there. That was what was actually there. And then the gradients and stuff and the darkness kind of sew it all together. They sort of make it all work together as a unit, right? In terms of the color and the mood and things like that. So that's not hard. So you say, well, if it's a trailer, how many shots are we talking about? Well, if each one's 5 seconds, then do the math. That means there's going to be about 12. 12 drawings. You basically have to do 12 drawings, 12 backgrounds, you can probably find a way to reuse a couple of the backgrounds. So that means, I mean, you really break this down. How long does it take Amar to draw one character and color it, do the fill, ink and paint? Just the static drawings. Forget the animation, because you're going to start out with a storyboard anyway. What is the storyboard? Well, the storyboard is just a list of the static images that best define that particular shot. And then within that still image, some stuff will wind up moving. So, at 5 seconds a piece, well, 5 seconds, hell man, 5 seconds is only 6 drawings. 5 seconds is, if it's a 30-second long thing, and if these shots 5 seconds, that's only 6 cuts. Well, how long does it take Amar to draw one character? Right now, if I say, okay, put a gun to your head, buddy, go. How long does it take you to draw a character? I'm guessing probably 5 minutes. So that means you could storyboard a 30-second trailer probably in a half an hour. The truth of the matter is, you could probably storyboard it in a half an hour. And you say, well, okay, I'm going to steal background ideas from Castlevania. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take stuff that I see in Castlevania and I'm going to like flip it in reverse or change it a little bit. But basically, I don't want to have the burden of saying, well, there's things that I don't yet know how to do, therefore I can't do this. Nope, we don't allow that. That excuse isn't allowed. So therefore, you're forced to steal all of the background concepts from something from Castlevania. You have to pick them from somewhere in Castlevania and literally just steal the background paintings. Not by copying them, but by deconstructing them in your mind the way I did. You got a black space, you got a black area. In other words, like this. This is what I'm talking about. Here's Castlevania. All right, gun's gone off. Go. Boom. Okay? All right. Boom. 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 Okay. Carry on from there. Keep doing this. I'm not going to do it fully out. Okay? Boom. Airbrush. Let's put it in. Whoops. Okay, come on. I don't want that. I want brush. Okay, put this in overlay mode. Okay, so we get this slight change in color from the bottom to the top like that. Okay, and you say, well, yeah, but Dave, you don't have the noise that they had in their thing. So you find a texture brush. I'll just pick this one since it's something. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to put it on another layer. I'm just going to go like this. I'm just going to add some noise, right? I'm just going to add noise. Why? So that I can then, well, I don't know, I'll just take a pick. Let's say multiply it and then turn it down. And then that gives us that little bit of variation in the bricks that we kind of saw in Castle Transylvania. Well, yeah, but in Castle Transylvania, it was kind of a little bit blurred or whatever. Oh, it was? Okay. Oh, blur. Yeah, there you go. Oh, we're getting there. You say, yeah, but in Castle Transylvania, they had kind of this bit of variation that really made it pop. Oh, okay, sorry. I forgot that, didn't I? Okay. All right. Well, this was really hard, right? See how hard this is? This is ridiculous. Oh my God. Can you do this? I think you can do this. I think you can do this. So even the background paintings aren't going to be a problem because everything that I'm doing is conceptually just stolen from someone else's creative work. You go, well, yeah, but that's not original. Okay, yeah, well, show me a Hollywood movie in the last 80 years that is original. Guess what? The answer is 0. We build on the shoulders of giants, and that is a good thing. That is the way it should be. Okay? So the worst, most difficult part of what I'm talking about is probably going to be the background paintings. Right? So if we're talking about this particular show being an inspiration, then you're talking about characters that are kind of along these lines. I'm being real liberal here with my brush, but there, in other words, there's more line variation, right? The ink isn't the type of ink work I use in my show, right? Okay, so So maybe this is Jonathan Harker. Maybe he's kind of a instead of a young man in our show, we make him kind of an older guy that's right, and then we give him this big swath of hair, you know. So we're kind of going comic book style here, right? Or whatever. So G key, boom, 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 boom. Let's just get it on there, get it going, man. Come on, we can do this. Okay, boom. Do 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 do. All right, behind mode. Let's go. Come on, man. Behind mode. Boom, 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 boom. How long have I been going here? All right, so now I'm gonna go a little bit of a shade. We're not gonna be in behind mode anymore. Let's go multiply. Whoops. Just totally winging it here. Totally winging it here. Let's unsolo that and see how that guy looks. Okay, so let's go. Boom. Let's shrink him down. Oh, we got a little mistake there, but that's all right. Okay, so unsolo that. Obviously, you want more stuff. But then what they did was they've also got these additional layers of. I mean, I'm just kind of telling you viscerally what I see. They've also got this kind of crap going on, which is pretty cheap. Pretty cheap. In other words, let's just go again, overlay mode for lack of a better idea. And then we just kind of ease that in and start seeing how that sort of gives the whole thing a prevailing mood and tone and stuff. Right? So, okay, so, you know, it's not perfect, but it took 10 minutes. Right? And we could just keep going here, you know, grab our brush here and maybe give him a really dark, I'm going to use a G key and just kind of really give him a, he looks more like he'd be the villain than the hero, I have to say, but, right? So let's say, just for the sake of argument, we'll say that he is more the villain in this case. So, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, my point is clear. This is well within the realm of, you know, if you actually took a little time with it, which I'm hurrying like crazy, but this is totally within the realm of your potential. So anyway, enough said. I'm done. Set a goal February matte paintings background, and that will take the longest. Gotcha. Sorry, I know you were getting Nope. I had to illustrate. I had to act it out and show you that in real time, this is what's possible. Update my Trello board and erase my whiteboard and add a milestone. So, hey, it's all good. And you know, come on, what I just did was a good exercise, you know. It's fun to do. It was fun to do. No problem. It just, you know, it's a good exercise, so it's all good. All right, I'm going to quit. I'm quitting and going to take a break. And we'll see what happens later today. I don't think I'll be streaming anymore because, again, frankly, I'm just not really getting that much work done. But anyway, I hope that helped, and you guys have a great day. And as you know, there will be